All right.
And we're live.
And we are live, everybody.
Yeah.
Exercise is Medicine. Episode number 5 was probably 4th recorded since I made a mistake on number 2. But at either rate, we are very honored to have our guest, Carlise. Thank you for taking the time to come and talk with us here today.
Thanks for having me.
Nick, would you like to introduce Carlise?
Carlise, an acquaintance I've been working at the Philly Sports Club.
Yep.
You're a personal trainer there.
Yes, sir.
And I've been noticing your social media. You put out some really good stuff. Yeah. And I've been watching a lot of the stuff has personally spoke to me pretty recently. Yeah. And I would just love to gain your insight. And if you could share that to our viewers to encourage them to exercise, it'd be great from your point of view as a personal trainer and your story as well.
Yeah, sure. I can give a little background on myself. So I've been a personal trainer for roughly about 15 years. I started working out when I was 10 years old. So I picked up my very first weight at a very young age and fell in love with it immediately. And while I was in college, I actually started out as an engineering major. And I quickly found out I wasn't very good at math. So I decided, hey, man, maybe I should start going with something I'm more passionate about.
Just the volume a little bit. Mm-hmm.
So I decided to shift over to kinesiology. I started studying how the human body moved. Got certified while I was in college at Temple University, and then started personal training at Bally Total Fitness back in the day. So
Bally Total Fitness.
Yes, that's how long I've been around. That's how long I've been around.
Bally Total Fitness.
Yes, sir.
So I was a sales manager and general manager of the New England clubs for a while.
No way.
Yeah.
Dude, that's small world.
So you know
man.
all about Bally Total
I know
Fitness.
all about Bally Total Fitness,
the
man. The good and the bad.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah, man. I know all about the commercial gym spaces, man. The good and bad. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So was that your first experience in the fitness industry?
It was.
You became a trainer?
It was, yeah. So, I got certified through the National Council of Strength and Fitness and started applying for jobs. They were one of the first people to hit me up. And started working for them. There was, at the time when I joined Bally's, they were nosediving. They were towards the tail end of their life expectancy.
Nick's heard this story before.
Yes.
So it was
literally last night.
It was a good time, man. I didn't learn a lot from the fitness leader that I was working with there, but I did, because I was so passionate about fitness and impacting people's lives through fitness. I just started picking things up on my own, just trying to learn from other trainers in the space, and just learning by trial by fire, and just get in there and mix it up. I wouldn't recommend that for most trainers if they're first getting into the industry.
Sure.
You need to work. I don't say working for a commercial. I'm not saying don't work for a commercial gym space, but what I'm saying is that do your research. If you're going to work for someone, make sure that person that you work for is knowledgeable, will teach you about the business, and will give you a leg up to make sure you're successful in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's been some years since I've been part of Bally Total Fitness, right? I left in 2009, 2010, I believe.
Oh, wow.
I was getting ready to go to graduate school.
Yeah, that was right before they sold.
Yeah, I was getting ready to go to graduate school. So at the time, I had gotten, I was an undergraduate in exercise science. And I was at Central Connecticut State University, and I just had this conversation a few minutes ago when someone asked me on a tour, what made you get into the field? And I didn't know for the longest time. I was a psychology major to a history major to a physical education major. I couldn't figure things out. I was very close to just dropping out of school junior year. A lot of people don't know that. And I was about to give up on my dreams. My dreams in school, because I was like, well, I'm investing a lot of money to go to school, and I'm not necessarily sure what I want to do. I'm already a year behind now almost. So, maybe it's best I take a break. And then my grandfather had bypass surgery. Yeah. Was prescribed cardiac rehab. And they said, yeah, there's clinical exercise experts. And I was like, what's that about? But when I was at Bally's for the longest time, they wanted me to stay. And
of course they did.
I don't want to talk bad about the commercial space, but I will say that, I had gone into the field, and maybe you could speak to your
For sure.
It's I got into the space thinking, I'm going to be a personal trainer. I'm going to, help inspire people's lives to change for the better. And then when I was at Bally's, it was pretty much just yeah, I know you're doing free workouts and all that type of stuff, but like, how much personal training can you sell? Like,
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
when it came down to
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
And so like, I kind of felt the pressures to produce
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and that was more of the focus each day.
Yeah.
Than actually just focusing on like, if I help enough people. This is a Zig Ziglar quote. If you help, you can get anything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. That's a
Yep.
Zig Ziglar quote.
Yep.
It's true. And once
That's
I started focusing on that, like, everything in my life changed. I went to grad school and it worked itself out. But was your experience similar that way too at Bally's?
Yeah, I would say so for sure. So when I first got there, they were like, they promised me everything under the sun. They're like, yeah, man, in 3 months you're gonna be making, $100K a year and blah blah blah, this, that, and the third. And it's funny too, because like when they told me that, I was in between vehicles. So like my old Dodge Neon that I brought up with me from high school into college when I moved up to Temple, it broke down on me. So I was like, all right, they're saying I'm going to make $100K a year. I can buy a new car, right? So I went out and bought a brand new car. I took some of my student loans because I needed the car to get around, because it wasn't my only job. I was actually working a couple different jobs. So I was valet parking, and I was also working at Radio Shack. I was doing sales at Radio Shack at the time. And I was like, well, I'm going to need a car, obviously, to get around and stuff, to get to work and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, screw it, man. I said, I always wanted a stick shift car. So I went and got a Mitsubishi Eclipse,
Nice.
special edition. And I was like, all right, bet I'm going to make enough money. And then the guy who actually hired me, he got promoted. And then another guy took over his place. And then when I got in there, it was like thrown to the wolves. Like, it was like, okay, they gave me a shirt and just slapped me on the ass and said, go out there and be somebody.
Yeah.
No training. Didn't even tell me what the prices were. Like, didn't teach me how to properly take someone through a fitness consultation.
Sure.
Like, nothing. So like, I just struggled. And, it wasn't until I had a few clients, and I did eventually pick up a couple clients, when I was like, well, I love this. I'm struggling with the business aspect of it and the sales component of it, but I do love impacting people's lives through exercise. And I just stuck it out. And that's not my recommendation on if you're trying to get into the industry of how to do it, but like, I did do it, and that's where I am today.
You also have to think about the times when we both sort of entered that space, right?
Yeah.
So that's probably, if you've been doing it for 15 years, we're talking what, 2006, 7-ish?
Yes.
I mean, that's right around where, like, when the stock market took a turn, there was a huge housing problem around that point in time. So I remember, like, I'm going to school, I'm barely making it. Like, I had a car, but like, I had to, like, I ended up, I was constantly, like, my whole paycheck was going to pay gas and like trying to go to school every day. You know what I mean? And I've told Nick stories in the exercise testing and prescription class that I teach that, it's like, you really have to, you go through some things in life, and it, I think it built me, when I couldn't afford food and I was working at the hospital and I was making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, taking them home, like,
I know. It's crazy.
like, but it's kind of interesting how these types of things happen. So let me ask you this question. With 15 years of experience, knowing sort of what it was, to like, in some ways I look at it as like, it's actually a lot better than it was, right?
A lot better.
How has it changed? What's the evolution been like for you as a trainer during this period?
So I've actually had an opportunity to work across the entire gambit. So when I first started at Bally's, it was just a trainer. Then my fitness leader got terminated, and I took over the role as a fitness leader there. So then I started to learn the back end of the business, and understand how personal training sales work, how you connect PT to membership sales, the whole 9 yards. And I did learn a lot, but I also didn't feel like I had mastered it. And then LA Fitness bought out Bally's. I worked for them for a short period of time. I'm going to talk bad about them because they're like the devil of fitness. They pay, and this is why, it's because they pay their trainers $6 a session. So when they took over Bally's, I lost literally every single one of my trainers. I told them, I was like, I said, so LA Fitness is taking over and you guys are now going to make, $6 a session. But they're like, no, but you'll make more because you're doing half-hour sessions. And then when you really think about it, but they try to sell us on this whole crazy thing that like half-hour sessions really worked. And I lost every single one of my trainers. I stopped believing in it. And I was like, I got to get out of here. Yeah. So I left there. I started working for City Fitness. I opened up their second location at the time on 21st and South. This is before they sold their personal training department to this company called Thrive. They used to just have their own personal trainers.
Gotcha.
And I got really good at selling because I really learned how to sell really well as a fitness manager. So in my first month there, I sold over $100,000 in personal training.
Wow, that's
Wow.
Off the rip. I was making $60K a year just straight from the rip. And then eventually I think I worked up to about around like 80, 90K a year there. So worked there for a while, learned the business a bit more. Worked for a couple private training studios for a while. That's a hustle itself. And then I've been at Philadelphia Sports Clubs for the last over 8 years.
Wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, 8 years is a long time.
8 years is a
So
long
there
time.
must be something that Philadelphia Sports Clubs is doing right.
You know what the thing is, man, is that, Philadelphia Sports Clubs, it's there's some gifts and some curses there, right? So not to talk bad about them, but they're held victim or hostage by, the red tape of corporate America, right? So they're only limited by a certain amount of things that they can do on a daily basis as far as support, education, and building their training and their staff and their trainers and their staff up. But the one thing that they do really well at is make sure that they compensate their trainers really well. So when I did start working for them, I was like, yeah, this is probably one of the best gyms I've ever worked for in terms of compensation and just making sure that their trainers are well treated,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I stuck it out there so long. Yeah.
That's awesome. I've noticed we've been friends for quite a bit, and you shifted your personal Instagram to a more professional one.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So basically what ended up happening is essentially my wife, who is probably my biggest fan, obviously, she decided, she was like, Carlise, she's like, I'm on social media, and she's like, I'm seeing just nonstop nonsense on social media. And she's like, and people are selling training or selling programs or selling products online with just BS information or just BS exercise methods. And she's like, you are so smart and you're so good at what you do. Like, you need to tap into that industry or into that space. And, obviously I see it too. I'll see guys, trying to sell you on some nonsense calisthenic workout or some band workout they do at home and they're super jacked. And I'm like, that's totally not what that guy does. Like, at
all drenched in baby oil before the video. Yeah.
Like, it's totally not how that dude got jacked. So I'm like, yeah. So obviously, but people will buy that stuff or buy into the programs, or whatever the case may be. So I'm like, yeah, let's start bringing some light, some real light to fitness and what it really means to be fit and to focus on your health and your wellness from a pragmatic standpoint and to be more realistic. We have to start getting more grounded with fitness because I feel like it's kind of spiraled out of control with, and I kind of blame bodybuilding a little bit for this. It's the professional bodybuilding, because like when professional bodybuilding came up through the 70s and the 80s and it really started getting marketed, people looked at these Adonis bodies and they were like, oh my God, I want to look like that. So like not realizing that first and foremost, that's all those human beings do. All they do is work out all day. They eat a very strict, down to the micronutrient diet. And on top of that, these guys they have the best genetics on the planet. And on top of that, they're on performance-enhancing drugs. So it's like you can't look at that and be like, that's what I want to look like. I have to do what these guys are doing. And I feel like social media has made it even worse because it's like it's all you ever see. When I pop up my social media, because I follow fitness pages and fitness people on Instagram, all I see are the most jacked, strongest human beings on the planet all the time, and I'm like, bro, that's not how fitness works,
No.
So that's what motivated me to want to really get some actual information out there for general population, because I feel like Gen Pop, they don't know. When I'm working with my clients, they're like, well, what actually works, what doesn't work? I heard about this one supplement. What do you think about HGH or blah blah blah? And I'm like, yeah, nah, man, like let's talk about your diet first. Let's talk about how much cardio you're doing, things like that, And it's just there's so much information and just so much BS out there that Gen Pop doesn't really know how to dissect it and which way is up and which way is down.
And they're very easily influenced as a function of that culture with social media, because like if somebody looks the part, actually, I'm full of little history stories, but in Arnold Schwarzenegger's book, The Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, right?
Yeah.
One of the first chapters in the book that he talks about, he goes through the history of how like bodybuilding has come to pass. And the first personal trainers were just the people who looked the part in the gym. You know, it was the people who were the strongest, or the people who had the cleanest physique, or have maybe lifted the longest, right? And they were the so-called experts. Without forgetting that there's been organizations like ACSM and others since the 1950s that have sort of been doing the scientific studies about lactate and all this type of stuff for years. But I'm really glad that you're doing this, because this is one of the reasons why Nick and I wanted to start this podcast, is that there is a lot of people, whether it's through YouTube or through Instagram and other platforms. What's the big one now?
TikTok?
TikTok, that's right. And we joke around. I don't have
Yeah, I don't
TikTok.
even use TikTok.
But
I had to get it because my wife's like, well, everybody's using
everybody's.
it. So.
I don't have that platform, but I see what you mean, where there's like people that maybe look the part, but they forget that like the general population that you talk about, they don't look like that today.
Nope.
They might never look like that if they don't have the genes, right? That doesn't mean they can't make progress.
No, it doesn't mean they can't make
But it sort of puts in a false sense of reality of what is going to be able to be.
It's really discouraging too. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. So ultimately, really, I'm glad that you're doing this, because we need more certified professionals that are working in the field to, I don't want to say combat, but like people that really know what they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Being able to put out information and to be able to practically, not only the information, be able to practically implement it in the right number of steps.
For sure.
So that way people can have a chance, right? Because if you tell people, we did this yesterday in class, Nick, where we talked about like, we do case studies in one of my classes, and we talk about like using like the Mifflin-St. John equation and figuring out, okay, well, this person is this hypothetical person is this weight, their body fat percentage is this, and their goal weight or their healthy body weight is this weight. And so how to figure out the number of pounds, sometimes people just, I'm sure, come to you and will say, I want to lose 50 or 100 pounds. And you're like, all right, well, how do we come to that number?
Yeah.
Where did we get that number from, right? And so we figure out, that's part of the class, to figure out what's that number. Yeah. And then, okay, if we know that 3,500 calories is 1 pound of fat, and we just back that up on a slow, this is the long game. So mindset, I want you to talk about mindset too, because like people oftentimes will want to change their diet and their exercise habits and change everything. And sometimes it's like, let's just get you coming to the gym and exercising. Let's start there, right? Let's build that habit in. Yes. So you keep showing up, that you don't go to this gym and just quit after a couple months of the new year. And then, we'll be mindful about nutrition, right? But we have to build in that habit where like going to the gym, and this is something I'm really interested in right now, is it has to become part of your identity as a gym goer, right? Yeah. Like, I've said it multiple times on this podcast now, but like I do martial arts in terms of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? So I identify as a martial artist, right? And so I am a martial artist. And so like when it comes to like competitions and everything, I identify as a professor, as a researcher, all these different things are part of our identities. And I think for someone who is, say, just trying to go into something, it could be a scary thing if they don't know what they should do, or they kind of know, like, I need to exercise. I really don't know how to use the equipment, or maybe I know how to use the equipment. People that have done college and high school strength and conditioning programs, right? But it's been 10 years since they've gone into the gym, right? Having every once in a while, I said this before, got to have humble pie every once in a while. Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes people that are expert, doesn't mean you don't know what you're talking about, but sometimes you got to just concede the power and let Carlise show you how to do it again. For sure. Yeah. People don't want to like let go of that, what they sort of, what I used to be. Yeah. And so can you talk a little bit about maybe how if you have different clients, from somebody who's a brand new exerciser and who maybe doesn't look like the traditional person that these social media folks sort of portray on the internet. Yeah, like, how do you like give that person, how do you let them know that like you're on their side and you're there to help them through this journey?
Do you mind if I push record?
Of course.
Here real quick. This is a good point. Sorry. All right. Great. So let's talk about that. So when I'm dealing with clients who come to me for specific goals, right, and they say to themselves like, oh, I want to look a certain way, or I want to reach a certain level of fitness. The first thing I will do is I'll set up a list for them. I'll go, okay, this is your goal. Here's your goal over here. Let's say they're a 40-year-old woman with a couple kids or whatever the case may be, and they're right now 200 pounds. They want to get their weight down to 130, right, which is a 70-pound weight loss. They're like, I want to look like I did when I was in high school. I'll say, okay, great. All right, cool. So I'll take their goals, and I never tell anybody that they can't achieve anything. I just try to bring reality, their expectations to reality, right? So I take what their goals are, and then I also take what their life is. And I say, okay, let's say her name is Sally. I say, Sally, okay, you're a full-time mom, right? So you have a full-time job, you work a 9 to 5. You got a husband, you got kids. What are some of the other things that you have going on in your life? They'll say, I don't know, like I like to go out with the girls on the weekends, maybe go for a drink or two, once or twice a week. Okay, great, you got a social life. Let's talk a little bit about your nutrition. Okay, what's your nutrition like? More than likely, it's not great because she works a full-time job, has kids, the whole 9 yards. So we'll talk a little bit through nutrition. I'll ask her about drinking habits like alcohol, which most adults in America does. So I'll ask her, say, how many nights a week do you drink? She'll probably say all, because she's got 3 kids at home. And as we're kind of dissecting her life, I go, okay, so Sally, I know you want to lose 70 pounds, okay? And not saying we can't do it, all right? But it's not going to happen overnight, okay? So what we need to do is we need to look at your life, okay? And the things that we have to keep in your life and things that we can start taking away to help you to get to your goal quicker, right? So I say, we obviously can't get rid of your husband. We can't really get rid of your kids, right? Those are the 2 things that have to stay. The husband maybe not so much, but the kids for sure, right? You got to keep your job. But your social life, maybe let's cut that down a little bit, okay? Stop going out with the girls so much, okay? That'll help with weight loss. If we can start cutting back your drinking, all right? Rather than drinking 7 nights a week, let's start out with just 3, okay? I noticed that right now your eating habits has a lot of just kind of snacking throughout the day, a lot of unhealthy snacking. So let's start changing that to some more healthier snacks. And we just start making some smaller changes to her lifestyle. And then I say to her, okay, 70 pounds is Mount Everest for you, right? So let's start out just climbing the local hill here in town, all right? And that local hill is going to be 10 pounds, okay? And what I'm going to say is we're going to give you about 8 weeks to lose about 10 pounds, okay? And that is more than feasible, more than realistic, okay? And then when I speak with Sally and I explain it to her in that capacity, Sally goes, okay, cool, I can understand that. And then after about 4 to 6 weeks, all of a sudden she's down 8 pounds. She's like, oh, wow, I'm losing weight. I feel great, whatever the case may be. And now she's motivated because now she's achieved an actual goal rather than the big goal, because the big goal, like, it may take her some time. And if she's not getting there as quickly as she may like, she becomes unmotivated, she stops, the energy from her workouts start to drop. She stops showing up to the gym, the whole 9 yards. So what I try to do is I try to create a realistic picture for their expectations and make sure to keep them focused in that realism and making sure that they get to smaller goals rather than just bigger goals, because they just think to themselves, okay, well, if I just throw my big goal up there, I'll get to it tomorrow, I'll get to it in 6 months, or whatever the case may be. And a lot of times these people fall short and then they give up too quickly. So that's typically what I'll do.
That's an excellent answer. I really appreciate that. There's also something that what you just summarized, that last part there, that's another Zig Ziglar thing where he talks about people who, because when he went to his doctor's like, Zig, you have to lose weight, right? And he was a legendary salesperson. And the whole thing was like, well, all right, I'm going to start running. When am I going to start running? Well, it's the new year, the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, right? All these holidays. And then I'm going to start the first of the year. And then, it's so cold. The weather's out. The weather's really bad. And then, by the time that winter breaks, it's springtime. It's like, I never really had a chance to go out and, it's nice weather. We're going to go bowling, with our friends, or we're going to go play some rounds of golf. And then the beach, and the kids are off from summer. And then the kids are off from summer. We're doing all kinds of activities with them. And then August, I got to get the kids ready back to go to school. Yeah. And then Halloween, and so, and then before you know it, we get back to Thanksgiving and Christmas again. And so it's really important to, like you said, because like people like know they want the goal, but they want it now.
Yeah.
What I would sort of take your philosophy as, that I think is a really good way, and you could share this with your clients as much as you want. Ideas are free as far as I'm concerned.
Sure.
$10.
It's really, it's like an investment account, right? And I talk about investments, right? Because I've had degrees in finance too. When I was in the Valley, I said might be good to get a business degree too.
Yeah.
That's why I took the business degree, Nick, by the way.
That's crazy.
Because I figured I needed more education while I was taking that extra year to finish school.
Yeah.
So, but really, like, if they have most people have no problem putting money away into, like, say, a retirement account or into an investment, right?
Yeah.
And over time, if you just do that, that compounds and really becomes an effective strategy where people have plenty of funds to retire, for example.
Yeah.
And so similarly, this goal, right, this sort of retirement age of this 70-pound weight loss,
Yes.
we have to break it down and says, okay, we're just going to put a little small deposit every day. We're going to just do a little bit of work 3 days a week.
Yep.
And that little activity over time is going to compound for you.
Yep.
You know, because you brought up that some people in 4 to 6 weeks out of a 10-week goal, or maybe you said 8 weeks.
8 weeks.
8 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Like, some people might not finish. They might. Do they have unrealistic expectations at that point? Do you find where they're like, oh well, if I lost 6 out of the 10 pounds and I still got 4 weeks to go, I could double it.
Yeah.
So how do you sort of scale that back when people sort of maybe could lose that weight, or maybe it's not necessarily losing weight. Maybe the goal is improving body composition, or the goal is to have more energy. How do you scale the expectations when things are going good? It's easy to, embrace the good.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
when they hit roadblocks, how do you overcome that?
So it's great when they start to see success and they want to keep going. I love that. I think it's fantastic. And that's really our goal, especially as fitness professionals. We want you to see success because through that success, it keeps you motivated to want to come back for more. Mm-hmm. But we also have to keep you grounded in reality, right? So like you can't think to yourself, okay, well, I lost 4 pounds this month. Next month, I'm going to lose 8, right? Like, right. If there's a threshold for everything in life. It would be like if I deadlifted 600 pounds last week and I go, well, next week or next month I'll deadlift 8. It's like, no, that's not how progress works, right? It took me, I don't know, X amount of years or X amount of months to get to 600, right? That means it's going to take just as much time, if not more time, to get to that next weight, right? So it's just making sure that they understand that it's a journey, and you don't want immediate gratification from this, because if it comes easy to you, what I have found with the guys, especially a lot of these guys, and I'm talking about some of our stronger people on social media, when it comes, like, for instance, Larry Wheels. I don't know if you know who Larry Wheels is. Do you know who Larry Wheels is?
I think so.
He's like a kind of circus act strong guy on social media, but he's very, very open about his performance enhancing drug usage, but still nonetheless, like, he is incredibly strong. But you'll see him, like, he'll be doing traditional strength training, some powerlifting stuff, some bodybuilding stuff, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, he'll just start doing arm wrestling or start trying to do strongman or some weird shit, and you're like, well, what are you doing? Yeah. And you want to know why? It's because everything that he's gained came so easy to him, so he's trying to find something new, right? So, like, when it comes too easy and it happens too fast, you'll give up, right? And you won't be as satisfied with it, and you're going to try to skip on to the next thing. It's like those people who are incredibly smart, right? Like, when they're super smart at something, they get bored. They're like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. Like, I have a client who has a friend of hers who is like a genius computer programmer. Like, she said, he's the smartest guy she's ever met. And he just up in one day quit his job. Was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And it's like, well, because it comes so easy to him, he was like, well, I'm not going to do that anymore, right? So when you really have to work for something, it keeps you focused, and it keeps you grounded in the efforts. It keeps you grounded in the process, and it keeps reality real. It keeps everything real, So I tell him, hey, let's stay grounded in reality, and let's keep it a gradual progression, and just keep getting you better month over month, week over week, day after day.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really interesting. What I really like how you mentioned was you were talking about actually like regarding a client omitting some things from their daily lifestyle.
Yeah.
I remember the lost episode we were talking about with Austin. We were trying to do this like judo with time management to like somehow orient, some kind of whatever. When in reality, you're like, hey, maybe if it's that important to you, maybe you should start taking things out of your life that isn't as important. Like take it out completely.
Yeah, that was what we were referring to with sort of like some things it's important to eliminate.
Yeah.
Some things it's important to figure out how to simplify and say to myself, what would this look like if it was easy? Is there anything that you can do that's taking up time in your life that you can automate? Things that like maybe technology can help you take care of things for.
Yeah.
And then, to a certain point, it's tough if you're doing everything yourself, but delegate, so if you have a partner, can you team up and you work and you accomplish your goals successfully together?
Yeah.
A good friend of mine, Shane, he recently got married. He moved out of the city, and he has a hard time sometimes going to training because he has a newborn, and so he has a good relationship with his wife in that he goes and exercises 2 or 3 days per week, and then she exercises 2 or 3 days per week, right? And so they take turns, and so one person watches the baby while the other one goes and trains, and vice versa. So they have a really good system. So that way, both of them don't just stay home and nobody exercises, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's important that people just realize, the value of just getting started and taking things in small incremental steps. That seems to be a common thread that we've talked about so far. Small incremental steps and being able to manage expectations, right? Because if people feel overwhelmed, a lot of times I've seen, not necessarily as it pertains to exercise, but really anything in life, sometimes your expectation for what something should be and then what it actually is you can never reach that goal, right? And so you built it up in your head of, well, it should be simple because X, Y, and Z, and then what I say is what's good in theory isn't always good in practice, and so sometimes when you're trying it, that's when you start to see like the machine doesn't, the screen doesn't turn on, right?
Yeah.
We forgot to press record for Austin. Or we forgot to format.
Don't worry,
SD
we're
card.
recording now. Okay.
We formatted these SD cards.
Yeah.
But that's just when we first started this out, it's one of the things that I bought a brand new SD card, put it in. I was like, all right, it should be good. But like I didn't know to format the card, right? And
yeah.
So,
but
little things like that.
And that's the thing, like how I like to approach, because I remember there was definitely a lot of hesitation with like just kind of starting this podcast in general. And it's just like just start just putting in the work here and there, you know what I mean? Just start doing it, and then just grease the wheels and then keep moving, and then the momentum is just going to require way less effort to actually keep pushing than it is to just start up all over again,
For sure.
Well, I've said this to Nick before and other students in the past, but so a lot of students have told me that I should do some kind of a podcast, right? Because sometimes these little like snippets of wisdom sort of come up and like it just spontaneously, right?
Yeah,
and it's
sure.
like, sometimes we all have had those moments where it's like, man, I wish I recorded that. And I never did, right? And so like people come to my office and whatnot, or I have conversations with people, and sometimes I get like these like inspiration moments where I'll say things that are important. But I didn't want to like just have a podcast just because everybody else wants to have a podcast. I didn't want to do it to hear myself talk, all those kinds of things. And so like I only wanted to say if I had a message that I could really talk about. And that was sort of like, well, Nick took on the role of being the student rep for Exercises Medicine, right? Which is sort of, we're in the business of providing information of how students, faculty members, staff, people of the Philadelphia community can engage and eliminate some of those barriers and just get started for exercise, right? Because we know that physical activity and exercise is a very important vital sign for health and longevity. And so some of our students that are sort of maybe younger, don't really have any risk factors yet, their parents might have risk factors. And so we see some of this in courses that we develop where one of our students had a parent who was living with a chronic illness and used the exercise prescription class, how to design, how to assess, how to do screening, how to check for risk factors, when to go and send them for medical referrals. And like his father's doing really well to this day as a function of that type of program, right? And he's had some involvement with exercise and medicine too.
Yeah.
So it really, what we're trying to do, at least at Drexel, is not to just, we don't want to be like every other exercise science, health sciences program where there's these labs, you have this experience one time, you did it, right? We really want to say, well, how can we use this class today to change somebody's life positively today? Yeah. And so we really focus on that. And I think, like you said, just getting started is really an important thing, because a lot of people think like, I have to buy the right pair of sneakers or the extra, all that type of stuff.
I needed to wear Nike Dry Fit when I started working out. I'm like, I need this material. Yeah.
You just don't need all.
Or they convince themselves, they're like, if I buy a fitness wardrobe, I'll go work out. It's like, no, just start working out.
Yeah.
And then go from there.
Right. If you actually flip it, most of the science will say it's better, because like if you start working out and then you reward yourself for hitting a goal, that'll be more motivating for the next goal.
For sure. Tear through your old stuff first, and then you'll be like, all right, I need some new workout clothes.
That's right.
Or
they won't fit, right? Because you've changed your body composition.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think that's really important. So can you talk a little bit maybe about sort of how you would encourage, say, let's say the average student that's listening to this podcast or a staff member wants to get started with exercise. What's your message for them on how to get started, right? Maybe they don't have confidence. And I know you talked about the example of Sally, right, in as a client.
Sure.
But, if someone's sort of like they're at that pre-contemplation or contemplation stage, they're not quite ready to they haven't sold themselves on the importance of, I really need to do this. Not only for what do you tell them? How do you get through to them?
So the person who, and we deal with these people a lot, is more so at membership sales more so than PT, because obviously when you're working through a gym, it's like first you have to get them to buy a membership, and then we can try to get them in training. Mm-hmm. But for me it's easy to sell memberships, because if a person is, we'll use a student for example, if they're like, well, I don't work out a lot, or I don't feel a whole hell of a lot motivated, the first question I'll ask you is, well, why did you come in today, right? So there's something in your life that's telling you want to get in better shape. You want to improve your lifestyle, or you want to improve your overall wellness, or whatever the case may be. So, the way I would speak to the people who are kind of struggling to find their way into fitness is that we all started where you are now. Right, it's not every person didn't just like wake up and is like rear end ready to go like David Goggins, right? Like, it's not everybody's like that, and I wholeheartedly understand that as a personal trainer who tries to encourage people to work out. But at the end of the day, you have to want it more than anyone else. And the second thing I would encourage you to have is people around you who are encouraging you to do it as well, right? If you are surrounded by people who are complacent, who are lazy, who don't want to work out too, it's like you're gonna it's like that peer pressure stuff. You're just kind of gonna fall in with the crowd, So, you have to surround yourself with people that also want better for you, for your health and your wellness. I have a client right now who she's dealing with a situation where she may be leaving her husband soon because he's not encouraging her to work out, and he's not working out. He's not being healthier. So she needs someone. She knows that she needs someone to encourage her to work out and exercise and be healthier, stop eating junk, stuff like that. So, I would say that's the next piece, is definitely make sure you're surrounding yourself with like-minded people that want good for you, and that's in anything in life, for sure.
Yeah, surround yourself with success.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, what I would say, I love that message, is the other thing to surround yourself, right? That's one of the 4 things that Valley Total Fitness used to tell you of why people don't join and engage in exercise, right? Yeah. Time, money, commitment, But the commitment is true,
bonding
right?
that's happening right now.
The support, you're right. And like the part is like sometimes the support piece has to be, it's not like you have to put people that are going to hold you accountable. That's really important too.
Sure.
Because sometimes you can have someone that loves and supports you. And I always joke around. I always say, like, when someone says, I want to support you, it's like, what does that mean? right? Like, is that an empty promise? Is that an empty gesture? Like, what does support mean?
Right.
Does that mean if I'm struggling and it's like late at night and I'm watching the latest season of Ozarks or something, that I'm going to want, I want to have ice cream in the freezer, right? Yeah. And I want to call you up and tell you that I'm about to eat this ice cream, or text you. Are you going to FaceTime me and tell me not to do it? Like what, or is it just going to be, you're going to listen to me complain after I've eaten the ice cream, right? So what exactly is it that you're going to do to help? I like that, because I think, like, when you surround people that truly love you, right? Part of the deal is they get to demand the best of you, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Sure.
So like that's part of the deal, right? So I have a significant other, right? Mm-hmm. And she lives in Massachusetts, and part of the deal is, like, I need to take care of myself, right?
Yeah.
I need to take care of myself. Right? That's part of the deal. And I hold her accountable, because she goes to a small group personal training type studio, right? And she doesn't want to go sometimes. Work's been busy for her lately. And I say, you need to take, self-care is important. You work in healthcare, right? You need to take care of yourself, right? Because guess what? Your employer ain't going to take care of you, right? Right? In terms of that. So you have to take care of yourself. You have to take ownership for that.
Yeah.
And that accountability, she goes to the gym. She's done really well. So that accountability, absolutely. When you have somebody that loves you, they get to demand the best from you as your support. So when you mess up, or when you don't do what you're supposed to do, they get to be mad at you and get to hold you accountable.
Without question.
So I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't know, Nick, do you want to talk a little bit about that in terms of how you've had, what kind of support systems have you had with your exercise program?
Yeah, I just kind of hold myself accountable, to be honest with you. Yeah. And sometimes I push myself a little too much.
But why do you hold yourself accountable?
Well, at some point I think it has become a part of my identity.
Good.
So Mike already knows it, but when I started exercising roughly when I was getting out of high school, so I couldn't afford college. I come from a very low-income family, sure. And the only way really for me to go to college was to get some sort of scholarship. Yeah. And I was right outside the arbitrary tax bracket, so I was looking at a ROTC to pay, and part of that was some kind of level of physical fitness, right, capability. So I just started running. I started at a quarter mile, and then I would just walk the rest of the mile to get the mile out, and eventually I was able just to run the entire mile.
That's awesome.
So there's I'm from Northeast Philly, so whoever's listening who's from Northeast Philly, there's like a little personal airport that I live near. That's where the Goodyear blimps take off for all the football games.
Yeah.
So I would eventually run kind of like the first quarter, and then run back, and then walk back, and then eventually, years later, I was able to run around the entire airport.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was like about 7 miles.
Dude, that's awesome.
I know. So, and then, kind of just like Mike, but a lot quicker, in 2 semesters, I was like, there's no way. I don't know what I want to do. I know it's got to be health at this point, because it completely changed my life.
Yeah.
But I've really just kind of stacked my entire life around health and wellness and exercise. And one of the biggest things for me is it's really hard to respect someone who doesn't put their money where their mouth is. Well, when I was in the Army, we had in the Rangers we had a pretty big budget, so we could afford things like a really expensive gym. It was like outfitted. It was like supposed to mimic one of like the NFL type gyms. Wow. We had like 2 CSCS personal trainers at all times, like during work hours. And we had one guy who he was like, I guess, an assistant to the CSCSs, but also worked as a go-between between the physical therapist. And he was out of shape, and he would try to help people, correct them on the hey, just so you know, your squat's a little messed up. And they would look at them and they'd be like, you know what I mean? They would they would disregard him. Yeah. And I'm telling you, this guy could probably execute a squat in the most perfect form I've ever seen possible. Sure. But you're not going to respect someone, honestly, or really listen to them if they don't look the part. Right. Perception's reality. Yeah. And I think you don't necessarily have to look like a bodybuilder. Yeah. I think people because you look like something, they think you're an expert. That's not the case. I'm trying to advocate, but I think if you are advocating for health and wellness, I think you should be healthy.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I think that's if we're providing this message and we're just sitting around eating pizza all day, that's pretty hypocritical, you know?
Absolutely,
So
sure.
it's a pretty important part of me to be able to advocate that. And I just kind of push myself every day thinking, you know, this is what I need to do in order to keep my career fulfillment in check, right? I don't want to be a doctor if I can't stay physically fit, right? Stuff like that. So that's kind of, it's all one and the same to me. You know what I mean? It's not just a career goal, it's a life goal, right? Sure. So, but anyways, I recently got a knee injury, so that's why I haven't been able to do a couple of your exercise tests. I think I got some like tendonitis. I was doing a lot of running and jumping and stuff like over the month of December. Yeah, you saw me around. Thank God we got those padded box jump platforms now. Remember, I busted my shin in front of you. Yeah. But and I was still running to the gym, and I was I was hurting myself like over like a couple weeks, just like because I was doing these leg exercises when I shouldn't be. And I think it's an important point to talk about restraint and omission in order to get healthy. And I liked how you brought a lot of that stuff up. Like, you need to take some things out of your life, right? Sure. And what really regarded me was your one of your social media posts about how when we work out, it's all ebb and flows. Yeah. You know what I mean? We're not always going to be going up and up and up and up. You know what I mean? We have like life that gets in the way. We have other things that are, you know, things to do, injuries, right, to recover. But what's important is you just keep a form of consistency. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, you know, now I'm boxing. I'm just like standing still, just like going on the bag like this. And I'm just doing upper body like a typical gym bro now, I guess. Yeah. Eventually my knees will get better. But, yeah, it's just, you know, it's a little curb and, you know, the overall, you know, hill that we're supposed to climb.
For sure.
So, yeah, I guess when it comes to holding, I can only hold myself accountable. You know, I try to encourage. I'm typically the support for a lot of the friends that are exercising, so I typically try to push them. But and a lot of it, to be honest with you, I enjoy. You know, I had a stressful day. You know what I mean? I'm kind of a hyper guy, I would say, and physical fitness really kind of levels me out. You know, it's also a really good form of just expression. I'll blast my music, whatever's troubling me that day or that week or whatever, you know, you just kind of visualize it in the form of this task I need to complete. And, you know, that kind of mind-body experience is just really de-stressing. And I look forward to that, honestly, nowadays.
Yeah, like you said, I do really believe that making it part, you said it, is making it part of your identity. But like the question, of course, is well, how do you make it part of your identity? I think that's a hard one that a lot of people can't necessarily.
Yeah.
You know.
So, and I think it's hard, right? Because, you know, when I was younger, I think I worried too much about what I looked like. A big part of that. And I think I actually for a brief period of time I was anorexic. So I wasn't eating as much. The performance nutritionist, luckily I had one when I was in the military, was telling me, hey, Nick, you're in 1,000 calorie caloric deficit. Wow. That's why I smell like ammonia all the time. Yeah. She's like, you're burning muscle when you're working out. Yeah. And I was doing that for just this idea of what a physique should look like. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was trying to go for the unnatural physique in a natural way, which was impossible, right? Yes. So, you know, all that out of the way. And I knew exercise was important to me, and I had different reasons why I was doing it at certain parts of my life. And then now I believe a much more healthy and sustainable way is just to be healthy, right? Yep. Another big thing is I like how you broke down your goals for your clients in kind of these micro milestones, right? Sure. It's extremely motivating. One of the ways I personally like to exercise in myself, to keep myself motivated and not demotivated, right, is I typically try not to tell anybody that I encourage to exercise to look at their physique or their weight for a couple reasons. and then let me know what you guys think about this.
Sure.
So one is that you're always going to be, if you, let's say you orient your goal as to your physique, right? You brush your teeth at least twice a day. You go to the bathroom a couple times a day. Look how many times you're looking at yourself in the mirror, right? And you're not at that physique you want to be at, right? And it's hard to set a subjective milestone for physique wise, right? So you're just kind of constantly being demotivated, not being at that goal, right? Another thing, or same thing as weight, right? So you're always going to be able to step on a scale, but that's also a very arbitrary value, right? So we don't know exactly what the composition of muscle to fat is unless you're doing something very intricate like a body density calculation, right?
Right.
Through skin fold assessment or whatever. So what I typically like to do is, now, you don't have to be a power lifter or anything or a marathon runner, but I like to have my exercise goals in the form of metrics.
Sure.
How much I can lift, how fast I can run, how long I can sustain this activity. Yeah. And I typically like that because not only does it kind of make me feel, it's quantifiable, yeah, but it is only a value that I can consciously basically figure out when I'm in the gym. And if I'm not in the gym, I am not discouraged, right? And then that is more or less, I feel like, a healthier way for me to approach physical fitness, because you're going to lose weight and you're going to look better by getting, your bench press up and your run time up, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. And I just, that's what.
I'm reminded of a quote by Peter Drucker, who wrote the book called The Effective Executive. He said, "What gets tracked gets managed." That was a very important quote.
Yeah.
Because what you're describing is objective metrics,
yeah,
that you can quantify, and you have a yes/no answer if you're improving, mm-hmm, versus a subjective perception of what people look at themselves like in the mirror.
And then, I look way better right after a workout.
Yeah.
So if I wake up in the morning to go brush my teeth, I don't look like that. What I look like after the gym, right? But the mind is going to be like, oh, you look like crap. Yeah. And then also you get all these bodybuilders who are really tan, you know what I mean? Yeah. They have great lighting for their pictures and videos that, shines around their muscles and everything, right? Yeah. They're probably, all vasoed out. Yeah. And it's, whether or not if they're on performance enhancing drugs, it's still not a look. You don't know what they look like when they wake up in the morning. Yeah. It's not a good reflection. Yeah. But that's when we look at ourselves. We look at ourselves right when we get up in the morning, yeah, when we get out of the shower, yeah, when we're not getting that pump on, yeah, and we compare ourselves to those people who are doing that on that Instagram post. Yeah. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I typically that's what I like to do. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much like everything you said for the most part, as far as maintaining a realistic, grounded approach to staying fit and in shape. I think that, setting, for me personally, myself as well, is I like to have performance-based goals. That's what, yeah, keeps me going in the gym. And I actually encourage most of my clients to do the same, because when they get caught up with just weight loss or a certain body appearance, it's a fleeting thing. Because, mm-hmm, let's just say hypothetically you obtain that, yeah, right? You're going to go, well, what's next? Right? And it's back to that whole, okay, well, I guess I'll try to go do something new now because I'm bored. Yeah. Right? I had this one trainer that worked for me at Bally's back in the day. Mm-hmm. I won't say his name, but phenomenal physique. One of the most naturally aesthetic physiques I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Dude just hit an 8-pack and you can see all the serratus muscles and everything, everything. He was jacked. He was just really good shape. He was super lean, but didn't really work out that hard. He'd go into the gym for an hour and bullshit around a workout, and that was it. And then one day he finally says to me, and he knew I really loved working out. I've always been really into my training. Mm-hmm. He goes, bro, how do you stay motivated? How do you keep going every day and wanting to work out and stuff? I was like, well, I love working out. And he's like, yeah, he goes, I really only worked out to look good. But he's like, I don't really need to work out to look good. I already got that. Yeah. So yeah. So if you don't have those performance-based benchmarks for yourself, and no, I'm not saying everybody should be a power lifter. Mm-hmm. I would probably put myself in the class of power bodybuilding. I do a little bit of both. Yeah. I kind of think it's a bullshit class because it's like you're either more of a power lifter or more of a bodybuilder. It's one or the other. But I would say I'm probably like 60-40, so I'm like 60% body powerlifting and then 40% bodybuilding, or 50-55, whatever the case may be. But nonetheless, like I still like to have those quantifiers. I like to have those metrics that I can manage and say, okay, I'm making improvement day over day or week over week or month over month based off of how well I'm performing in the gym. And before I know it, my body looks great. Like my body always looks great because I work out. You know, I'm just exercising, and I'm exercising with the intent of improving exercise, improving my movements, improving my technique, improving time under tension, getting more repetitions, getting more sets, recovering quicker, all those things, right?
I like, and what I like about it particularly is how much more you're concerned about proper form as well.
Yes.
Because when you're worried about your squat, you're worried about, can I do this correctly? Yes. Whereas this physique you're trying to obtain, you're like, okay, let me just kind of body English my way through this just so I can get a good, and you might be burning the calories, but you might be throwing out one of your spinal discs. You know what I mean?
Without question. And I'm actually dealing with a client right now who comes from the old school bodybuilding philosophy of you just go into the gym and you just get through a workout through grit alone. And I said to her, you know, she's got a bad back. She didn't hurt it while she was trying to be a bodybuilder, but she hurt it before that. And then the coaches or trainers that she's worked with before me never emphasized technique. So she sent to me a video the other day. She sends me a video asking about her deadlift form, and in our last session, she says to me, she goes, would you ever spot someone from the chin during a deadlift? And I looked at her like, what? And she goes, yeah, like my old trainer would spot me from the chin during a deadlift. And I was just like, I go, what? I'm like, no, you don't. First and foremost, why would the deadlift is a complete solo exercise. There is no spotting on that. Like, you're either getting the weight up or not. Like, no one's spotting you. And it's not a bench press or a squat. Like, no one can help you. But then she sends me the video. And, oh my God, it was so bad. Her spine, complete spine flexion. Like, she's completely lifting with her back. Her shoulders are slouched forward. Zero core bracing. It's all in her back. And she said to me, yeah, like, oh, and I used to work out. Like, my back would kill me all the time. That's why I stopped lifting weights. And I'm like, yeah, the way that I train is technique focused first. Sure. Then we start pushing the weights. Then we start pushing the repetitions. But if you can't do rep 1 with an empty bar with perfect form, don't expect to put any weight on that bar.
Yeah.
Don't expect to put any weight on it.
I find a lot of younger, especially guys, who typically like to ego lift.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They try to get 3 plates on the bar minimum on their deadlift, 2 for bench, 1 for overhead press, and it's like, you know, you got to take a nice slice of humble pie sometimes. You know what I mean? Focus on the form. A lot of the times when I like to get people to work out for the first 2 weeks is just to do form with something that's not even difficult. Maybe just a bar for all your exercises, just to get down the form. Yeah,
for sure. And it's in you know, the one thing for our young guys out there that will be listening to this, it's okay to lift, to not be the strongest guy in the gym. It's okay. You do not have to walk into the gym and immediately be, you know, Brian Shaw lifting, you know, 800 pounds on your deadlift or something. Like, you don't, like, there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. And I know that's hard for a lot of our people out there, both men and women, going into the gym, and it's super intimidating because maybe you're walking into a gym and everyone looks like an expert in there and they've been working out for forever.
Yeah.
They may have, but believe it or not, one of the things that I run into a lot is that I'm intimidated to go into the gym. I run into that a lot with general population. And I'm like, believe it or not, you're less noticed than you think you are, right? People don't really, like, they see you and then they're back to their workout. They're not sitting there watching you and trying to judge you or whatever the case may be. So it's okay to go into the gym, start out with the basics, and be lifting light. You don't have to immediately be Usain Bolt in there running, you know, 100 meters in 5 seconds. Like, it's just, you don't have to be that person. You know, it's okay to start from the ground level. Everyone had a starting point. Just be okay with that process and take your time.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good advice, and a lot of folks, speaking to the point about how you're not as noticed as you think you are. That's actually a really, really true statement. There was a study that came out. I can't remember exactly who authored it, so if I can find the information, I'll provide it in either the show notes or we'll provide it for folks. But on average, when people are afraid of like public speaking, which kind of is like not the same thing, but you're trying something new that you're not accustomed to do, walking onto the muscle mat of the floor for the gym for the first time.
Right.
That's very similar to, for some people, like public speaking. Like they stand up in front of a room.
Mm-hmm.
7 out of every 10 people aren't even listening to you.
Yeah.
Talk.
Really?
So when you go in class and you stand in front of a class and
Wow.
there's 30 people,
That doesn't surprise me.
not many people are even listening to you. They're on their phone.
Well, they're much more concerned about themselves. Yeah.
They're looking
Yeah.
off into the wall. They're
Yeah.
doing other things. So,
Yeah.
so when people are worried about that, 7 out of every 10 people aren't even listening. And so the 3 that you got, they're probably on your side because
Yeah.
they're giving you the respect to pay attention.
Yeah.
So it's really important, I think, for people to get a lot of very early and small wins because that can too be motivating, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be in the scale, but again, like we know that the tool of exercising, as an example, is going to be one that's going to get you towards this goal, right? This future destination that we want to be at. Right?
Yeah.
But as you said, Carlise, breaking it down into smaller little subsets.
Yeah.
That's really the journey. Those are the Google Maps. Those
Yeah.
are the mile markers.
Yeah.
Take a left here,
Yes.
turn right here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, we want to get to Maine maybe
Yeah.
from here, right?
Yeah.
Which is far.
Yeah.
It's a long drive,
Yeah.
right? But there you got to go through multiple states and
Yeah.
checkpoints, and then there's little stops off the road.
Yeah.
We got to eat, right? Like,
Yeah.
goals work the exact same way.
Yeah.
And
You get
people
turned around. Whoops, made a wrong turn.
Exactly.
You know?
Oh, I was doing the wrong thing, and like, I found this strange diet that, like, that
Drink fucking juice all day.
right. So,
The
so
30
it's true.
bananas,
Like
yeah.
people need those wins, and like a lot of people that I think that not necessarily only of the Drexel community, but like I like how you referred to the folks as general population.
Yeah.
People who maybe are not exercisers or were exercisers or maybe are trying to become more physically active but don't necessarily have the target of exercise in mind at this point in time. Some people don't know that, well, if I go to the gym, I need to be more physically active. But like they don't necessarily have the target of the goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a body weight or a 1 rep max number or a vertical jump height, right? Any of those
Yeah.
types of things. And so that's really where I think fitness professionals and academics, I have to provide the knowledge and the lab skill for this, right? But then we put people into the field, right? Co-op opportunities, right?
Yep.
And so someone who would say, I want to do a cooperative education with Carlise,
Yep.
at Philadelphia Sports Clubs. I want to work with him because, I like his training. I like his philosophy to training. And I think like that is really where we're really trying to address a lot of those gaps with this podcast is really bringing experts like yourself who are actually doing it in the real world, who have a very inspirational and a good story that
Yeah.
I didn't know we were going to have a story as close to that we would today, but it's awesome. The world really is smaller than we imagined.
For sure.
And really trying to like lower the barriers to folks, and say like, there is no prototypical exerciser.
No.
There is no prototypical person. There is no, I joked in class the other day about this, like apparently healthy adult. Almost every single person is living with something that nothing about, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Whether it's anything from a back injury, right, to dealing with
High blood pressure.
and so everybody's got something.
Yeah.
And so like what is normal, right?
Yeah.
What is that? And so everybody has their own story. And I think it's really our job as fitness professionals, as academicians, to really demystify a lot of that
Yes.
and empower people to say, okay, this is the ground level entry, and here's the way we're going to walk you through that.
For sure.
Yeah.
So,
For sure.
that's what I think. I know. Do you have any closing arguments? Do you have
I
any closing?
don't think we argued today.
Not argue, but do you have any messages for our listeners or to people that maybe follow you on your social platform? Or people you work with?
So one of the things that this is coming from a place of absolute love and love for the industry, love for people, and wanting to impact people's lives positively through fitness, health, and wellness. If you're scared and you're nervous, or you don't know what is the right workout or program to follow or exercise routine to follow, and there's all this information like we talked about on social media where you're like, well, is this person telling the truth? Like, they're telling me that they look great, so maybe I'll follow their program, blah blah blah, all these things. Okay, I always encourage to start out, especially if you're brand new, start out working with someone. Okay, find a trusted professional in the industry that you know, and it could be someone that someone referred you to them or whatever the case may be, but they have a track record for success. Do research on them, find out who they are, and hire someone to help you in the beginning, because it is a little nerve-wracking when you first get in there into a workout routine, okay, trying to exercise and be more fit or whatever the case may be, and you're like, I don't know if I'm doing the right stuff. Yeah. And I say the reason being, one of the main reasons I say is hire someone is for this reason alone, is so that way you don't injure yourself during your fitness journey. There's no greater setback in a fitness journey than injury, right? It's like, crap, all right, well, I guess I'm back on the couch and eat Cheetos, my back is blown out. It's like you don't want to run into a major pitfall like an injury or whatever the case may be. And listen, exercise carries risk. It does. Yeah. It can be a very dangerous place for sure. So for our people out there who, are getting that itch and want to get in better shape and you're not quite sure on how to do it, find someone to do it, okay? And hey, listen, I'm looking for clients all the time. So you can find me on Instagram. It's Carlise Bonds, spelled Carlise. And check out some of my content, look me up and get some free tips and stuff. And if
awesome.
You're looking for somebody great, come see me.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. Nick, excellent recommendation. This has been far more than I thought. Yeah. And you really provide a lot of useful information for our listeners, your listeners, and I am so grateful that you took the time. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
All right, buddy. Sure. We'll see you all next time.
Yeah.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.